Hello. Not long ago I released a video where I described how to use iCustom, and I have that video playing in the background here at the moment. It was a simple and somewhat superficial video, just meant to be a quick answer, and I've had a number of questions about iCustom since then, and a number of other questions about other topics that all relate to using iCustom. So what I've decided to do today is a second video where I go into a bit more detail, describe iCustom a little better examples, and what I'll actually be doing is writing two complete expert advisors, each using a different custom indicator through iCustom. Now, I'm going to be doing this for MetaTrader 4. The expert advisors and the use of iCustom for MetaTrader 5 is quite different to the way they're used in MetaTrader 4, and it didn't make a lot of sense to try to fit it all into one video. So there will be a second video coming out where I will do the same thing in MetaTrader 5, and I'll use the same custom indicators. But for today, this is just MetaTrader 4. And as I said, two complete expert advisors from beginning to end. Now, just before we begin actual coding, I thought I should make sure everyone understands what we mean by custom indicators. If I go to the indicators button here on screen, you can see at the top of that are the recently used indicators. This is just indicators I've dragged onto a chart at some time in the recent past. But then there are the groups of indicators, so trend, oscillators, volumes, and Bill Williams. And those are all of the indicators that are supplied within the platform. And then there's this final group, custom. Now, a lot of these custom indicators are also in the standard indicators. So if I look, for example, at custom, there's a CCI here. That's the commodity channel index. And if I go to oscillators, there's also a commodity channel index. The commodity channel index here is an inbuilt indicator, where the CCI indicator here is a custom indicator. They operate in the same way. The answers are the same. The values you'll get from them are completely the same. But this one is actually a custom indicator, and there is code supplied with the platform as an example that is the custom indicator for this CCI. You can also see these indicators here in the navigator panel. So indicators that appear at this top section. So there's trend, oscillators, volumes, and Bill Williams again, and these are the inbuilt indicators. But then if we scroll down a little further, there are examples, and then there are the indicators that Orchard has created here because I put them inside a separate folder. Then here's the CCI custom indicator. And I can drag that onto the chart, and it has inputs, and it will operate like any other indicator. Where if I go back to the inbuilt CCI, and this is a subtle difference, you'll see that the input screen is a little different. The inbuilt indicators have a more customized input screen, where the inbuilt indicators have a more customized screen, where the custom indicators use the default list of inputs type screen. If I look at that, if I look at Ichimoku, you can see these are the standard inputs to any indicator or expert advisor. So these are what we mean by custom indicators. Now, here I really only have the custom indicators that were delivered with the platform. You may have downloaded them from somewhere else. The techniques I'm going to show will be using these default custom indicators, but the procedure is the same for any custom indicator you may have. So let's now move to the code, and first thing I'll be doing is describing the template for the expert advisor that I'll be using, and then I'll insert the custom indicator code to draw the values into those expert advisors. I'll start by going over a very simple EA template that I'm going to use for this. The purpose of this video is to talk about iCustom, so I won't spend too long on the template, but I need to show you something so that you at least understand how it works and what's going on here. Now, this is a set and forget type template, and by that I mean once the order has been placed, then I'm just using take profit and stop loss to handle the exit from those trades. So there's nothing more to do for the EA once an order has been placed. So that's why it's simple, and it's a good way to show iCustom. Now, because I'm not trying to perform any special calculations for take profit and stop loss, I'm just making them inputs. So the number of points for take profit and stop loss here. And then I'm just inputting an order size, which I always do, a trade comment that by default is the file name, and a magic number. Then, because the take profit and stop loss have been entered in points as integers, I'm going to convert those to a double value that is an actual price value. And you can see in the on init section here, I'm getting the value of a point using the symbol info double function. And then I'm calculating take profit as being the points entered in the input multiplied by the size of a point, and the same then for stop loss. There's nothing to do in the dinit section. Here in the on tick, I'm checking for a new bar, and we'll see that function in a moment, because I'm only trading once per bar. So if this is not a new bar, then I'll just return here. In this section, the perform any calculations, this is where I'll actually be making the call for iCustom and performing any other calculations that need to be done for this expert. Then the strategy, I'll be calculating buy condition and sell condition. By default in this template, they're set to false initially. I'll be replacing these false values with the actual tests that I'm performing on the strategy for the iCustom values. And then if the buy condition is met, I'm going to open order for a buy, and if the sell condition is met, I'm going to open the order for a sell. And I've got a function below that handles the order open, so we'll also get to that. And then finally, any wrap up that might be needed, and I'll be putting something in here for the iCustom as well. The new bar function itself, very simple. I've got a static value of date time, which is the previous time, initialized to 0. Then I'm calculating the current date time as being the start time for the current bar, bar number 0. And if the current time is not the same as the previous time, then I simply update previous time with current time and return true, because this means we've started a new bar. And if current time is the same as previous time, then it will simply fall through here and return false from the function. The order open, I'm accepting an order type, a stop loss amount, and a take profit amount. If the order is an order type buy, then I'm calculating the open price, which is the ask price for that symbol, using the symbol info double function, and then the stop loss will be the open price minus the stop loss amount, and the take profit price will be the open price plus the take profit amount. And then the sell case is just the opposite of that. I'm using the bid price for the open, and stop loss is above and take profit is below. Then I'm just using the order send to place the order for the symbol, the order type passed into the function, the order size from my inputs above, the open price, stop loss price, take profit price calculated. And then, because this is a Boolean function to indicate success, if I get a ticket number that's greater than 0, then I'm just returning success as ticket greater than 0. And that's everything for the template. So now we need to look at how we set up the iCustom to use the MACD values in here. So first, let's just look at the MACD custom indicator. Here it is under indicators in the navigator. If I drag that onto the chart, I can see that there are 3 inputs, the fast, slow, and signal periods. And I'm going to want to capture those in the EA so that I can use them in the iCustom function. So first, I'll create those inputs on the EA. Alright, so I've got inputs for fast EMA, slow EMA, and signal SMA. And I'm just using the same defaults that MACD uses. Next, if we go back to the chart, and I actually let that finish, so here I have a MACD, and if I open the data window, I can see that for the MACD indicator, there are 2 values, the MACD value and the signal value, and they change depending where my cursor is. These are the 2 values I want to return from the custom function, and the MACD being the first line is number 0 and signal is number 1. So I'm going to set up some values inside my EA just to call these number 0 and number 1. Alright, so I've set up a string for the indicator name, which is MACD, the MACD buffer is number 0 and the signal buffer is number 1. I've put the indicator name here rather than further down in the code because I like to keep these constants in one place just in case I need to modify them later. I don't need to look through the code and find them, and if I've used them in more than one place it's much easier to change it once here, and then all of these will flow through the code. Also, this MACD is exactly the name that we see here. If this MACD were in a subfolder underneath indicators, then I would need to include that folder name as well. Something like subfolder / MACD. I'm using 2 backslashes here because the backslash is an escape character. So if I want to enter it in this string, I need to use 2 of them. But MACD is at the top level in the indicators folder, so that's all I need. Now the strategy that I'm going to implement for the MACD will be, let me scroll backwards here so I get some positive and negative. If the MACD, which is the histogram, crosses below the signal line in the upper half or in the upper section of the MACD, then I'm going to sell. And if the MACD value is in the lower section and crosses above the signal line, I'm going to buy. Now, the current bar is always bar 0. So what I'm looking for is bar number 1, which is the bar just closed, to have crossed, which means that bar number 2 would be the bar below the signal line or above the signal line, and bar number 1 has then just crossed that signal line. So to keep track of bar number 2, I'm just going to create a couple of variables to store the values that I had from that bar number 2. And I'll do that in here in this perform calculation section. So I'm setting up a value for the last MACD value, which I will just keep storing after I do each loop through here, and that way it will be the value from bar number 2 and last signal will be the same thing. Now I need to actually get the values from the iCustom function. Alright, the iCustom function starts with 3 arguments: the symbol, the period, and the name of the indicator. So this is coming from the value that we set up in the constant above. Period I'm just taking from the chart, and symbol I'm taking from the chart. They are always the first 3 arguments to the iCustom function. And I'm calculating 2 values. I'm getting the current MACD and the current signal. The last 2 arguments to the custom function are always the value number. So this is value 0, the buffer for the MACD, and buffer signal I set up as 1. So this is value 0 and value 1, and then the last number is the offset or the bar number or the shift that I want to get the value for. So if I put 0 in here, it will get me the current value. By putting a 1, I'm getting the value for the bar that's just closed. All the values in between are the inputs to the custom function, and these are in the same sequence that they appear for that custom function. So the first input was the fast EMA, second was the slow EMA, and the third was the signal SMA. So I'm just passing my 3 values. If you miss values here, then the defaults from the indicator will be used, but obviously the only values that you can miss will be the last values. You can't miss the second and expect the third to be filled. So I'm passing all 3 here, and this is all that's needed then for the iCustom to get the current MACD and the current signal value. So symbol, period, indicator name, indicator inputs, and then which buffer or value number and which bar number. Now that I have those, I'll put my simple strategy in here. So as I described, I'm going to buy if the MACD is currently negative and the MACD from bar 2 was below the signal line, and the MACD from bar 1, which is the value we have here, is above the signal for bar 1, which we have here, and the opposite for a sell. And when I initialize these two static variables, I set the MACD to 0 and the signal to 0, which is not going to match the condition for being positive or negative, so that way I'll avoid processing on the first bar where I open. And I want to do that deliberately, because if I'm looking at a 4-hour chart and I happen to start this EA 2 hours in, I don't want to execute a trade based on the bar that closed 2 hours ago. So this will always wait until the end of the bar where the EA starts. Now I'll just replace these default buy and sell conditions with the conditions for the MACD. So I'm setting my buy condition. Last MACD is below 0, so we're in the lower section, and was less than or equal to the last signal, and the current MACD is above the signal, then I'm going to buy, and the opposite for a sell. Get rid of these two default values. This doesn't change. I've met the buy condition and met the sell condition, so that will go through the standard order open function. And then the last thing I want to do is save these values of current MACD and current signal into last MACD and last signal. And that's it. So the focus of this is how to use iCustom. Remember, first 3 arguments, symbol, period, and name. Last 2 arguments are buffer number and bar number, and then the arguments in between are the inputs to the iCustom function in the order that they appear. And this indicator name, remember, matches the name shown here. Oops. Matches this name, and if this is inside a subfolder, then include the path within the indicators folder. Just make sure I haven't made a mistake with that. Compile it. Oh, I did make a mistake. Let me see. Mistake on my copyright statement. And that's it. So let's go through the whole thing again. I'm going to use a different custom indicator this time, and a slightly different approach. I'm not going to use take profit and stop loss points. I'm actually going to have an exit strategy on this. I'm going to use the parabolic SAR. So first thing we do, go to MetaTrader and find the parabolic, which the custom function for parabolic SAR is just called parabolic. Here it is. So the name that I'm going to be using is parabolic inside my EA. Let's put that on the chart. It has 2 inputs, step and maximum. And when it's running, there is only a single value, so it's value number 0. And my strategy will simply be, when the parabolic SAR flips from above to below, then I'm going to buy, and when it flips from below to above, I'm going to sell. So now in the code, I don't need the take profit and stop loss inputs, but I do need the inputs for the 2 values passed into the parabolic SAR. So I do need this step and maximum. I'm going to retain the take profit and stop loss here, but I'll be setting them to 0. Now I'll set up the buffer number. So the indicator name, as we saw from the terminal, was parabolic, and there is only one value the SAR buffer, which is 0. In the init then, I don't need point, and as I said, I'm just setting take profit to 0 and stop loss to 0 for this example. Here I have to perform the calculations using the iCustom. I'll paste those in. So as I said, with my strategy, I'm simply going to trade when the SAR moves from above to below. It always moves across the entire bar, so I really need to compare the SAR value with just one price point inside the bar, so I'm just going to use the close value. And again, I'm setting the last value so I know when it has flipped from above to below. If you're familiar with SAR, it might be a better strategy to actually set a stop loss point or a take profit point where the bar might cross the previous SAR value, because it will flip there, but I'm not trying to write the expert advisor here. I'm trying to explain how to use the iCustom, so I'm going to stick with waiting until the bar has closed. So I've got the last and the last SAR and the last close, and I've got the current SAR, which again, symbol, period, and the indicator name. There are two inputs to the SAR function: the buffer number, which is going to be 0, and bar number 1. And then for close, I'm actually using the iClose function rather than the close with the square brackets as an array, because I'm trying to keep this as compatible with MetaTrader 5 as possible, although there are other changes that make it more difficult to make this compatible than it is to have a second expert advisor. So now I'll replace the buy and sell condition. So I'll just enter the new buy and sell conditions here. Alright, so I've got one condition here: if last SAR is not equal to 0. So I'm trying to eliminate that first bar. So if last SAR is 0, meaning I've just come in here, then I'm not going to trade on that bar. Then my conditions are: if the last SAR was above the last close, which in the case of the parabolic SAR means that it was above the entire bar, then, and if the current is below, then it means that I've flipped from being above the bar to being below, and the opposite for the sell. So then the buy condition and the sell condition, I'm still opening an order, but I'm also going in here to close the sell orders if this is a buy, and close the buy orders if this is a sell. So I'll just So if this is a buy condition, I'm just going to close all of the sell orders. I'm going to close the buy orders if this is a sell. And I'll just write that function in a moment. Any information to save is just going to be this last SAR and last close. And now all I need to do is create this close all function. So for this function, I'm just going to do a simple loop, anything that is the appropriate order type, and for the current symbol and magic number, then I'm just going to close that trade. So this is just a simple loop, total number of orders, counting down through the orders. If I'm able to select by position for the trades, if the symbol matches, if the magic number matches, and if the order type matches, then I'm just closing the order. Just check the compile. There's a warning here that I should be checking the value of the order close, but I'm not worried about that for this example. So that was using the parabolic SAR, using iCustom, again the symbol, the period, and the indicator name, the two inputs to the indicator, which buffer number and which bar number. So those are two simple expert advisors, each using iCustom. The method of calling iCustom is the same. Identify the inputs to the iCustom function, identify the outputs, and then call using the symbol, period, and custom indicator name, and finish with the two arguments being which value number you want to retrieve and which bar number. I hope this has been useful to you. If it has, please leave a like. If you have any questions, leave comments. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, then please subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when we release the next video. As always, thank you for watching.